aloof and reserved Dr. Zhou has finally moved into my house, but the first thing she did was to fully expose herself before my eyes. Seeing this, I suddenly had a mischievous idea. This would be a good opportunity to take revenge on Fan Yuqing, the White Lotus. In my past life as a sycophant, I slavishly followed her. For 18 years, I couldn't even become a backup option for her. In the end, after the apocalypse, I was deceived into becoming food for her. So, I immediately sent a cozy photo of Zhou Qi and me to Fan Yuqing. Then I expressed regretfully, "Fan Yuqing, you're a good person, but I've found true love now. Let's not contact each other anymore. I don't want her to get the wrong idea." Upon hearing the voice message, Fan Yuqing hurriedly broke free from Wang Min to pick up her phone. After seeing the photo, she exploded. "Zhang Yi, the one who truly loves you is Fan Yuqing. Zhou Qi is only with you for the food." Hearing this, I laughed. "Aren't you the same? Moreover, Zhou Qi is far superior to you in every way. How could I give her up for you?" After reading the message, Fan Yuqing burst into tears. "I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You were so devoted to me before. How could you change so suddenly? It must be that bad woman Zhou Qi who did something." Her best friends and Wang Min immediately began to mock her. "You self-centered White Lotus. This is karma." On the other side, I asked Zhou Qi, "Do you think I'm being cruel by doing this?" Zhou Qi immediately leaned in. "I trust that you have your reasons for doing this." Hearing this, I also lowered my guard considerably. After all, no man can resist such an understanding and sensible woman. In a short while, Zhou Qi made a table full of delicious lunch. I had just picked up an apple and taken a bite when a message came in from the homeowners group chat. I saw the formerly arrogant Auntie Lin starting to make trouble again in the group. She claimed to have relatives in the upper echelons of the government and threatened that everyone must hand over their food to her. Otherwise, everyone will be dealt with after the snowstorm. Seeing this message, I was taken aback. I remember Auntie Lin was the first to be looted by Chen Zhenghao. That she's still alive is truly a miracle. At that moment, Zhou Qi quietly mentioned she had left some supplies when treating Lin Xiaohu, thinking that the snowstorm would pass quickly. She didn't expect the snow to last for 2.5 months. I was puzzled. Logically, after so much time has passed, even with the supplies Zhou Qi left, Auntie Lin couldn't possibly have survived till now, especially when she also has a 2.5-year-old grandson. Hearing this, Zhou Qi said that Lin Xiaohu died about 10 days ago due to lack of medication. Hearing this, it suddenly clicked for me. It seems that Auntie Lin has eaten her precious grandson. Zhou Qi naturally knew what I meant. Having been under Chen Zhenghao's control for 2 days, she has become quite numb to the concept of cannibalism. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. Seeing that it was Uncle Yu calling, I picked up the phone to answer and asked what was going on. On the other end, Uncle Yu looked awkward. Uncle Yu, as one of the few good people left after the apocalypse, and also a martial artist, was someone I naturally wouldn't refuse. Uncle Yu hesitantly stated, "Xiao Mei's daughter, Tang Bao, is running a fever, and she would like to borrow some fever-reducing medicine from me." Uncle Yu, who has been single all his life, was probably tempted by the young and attractive Xiao Mei. After being single for 40 years, how could Uncle Yu resist such temptation? So, he became the willing victim of this scheming mother. Hearing this, my expression faltered. This Xiao Mei is indeed not simple. Among all the homeowners, only Uncle Yu and I have stockpiled supplies, yet she managed to make the most correct choice among many. But I didn't think much of it. After all, it's someone else's family matter, and this could be an opportunity to win over Uncle Yu for future use. So, I smiled and said that I still have a few boxes of fever-reducing medicine, and asked Uncle Yu to come pick it up later. Hearing this, Uncle Yu was overjoyed and profusely thanked me, even swearing that if I ever need his help in the future, he will do his best to assist me. At that moment, Zhou Qi leaned over and asked, "Do you have a good relationship with Uncle Yu?" I answered indifferently. People interact mainly for mutual benefit. Uncle Yu is a kind and honest person. Having him owe me a favor might be useful later on. Moreover, I don't want to see a retired soldier like him lose the last glimmer of his humanity in these apocalyptic times. Soon, there was a knock on my door from Uncle Yu. "Is little Jean there? It's Yu Jiguang." Hearing this, I looked through the door's monitor. Unexpectedly, Xiao Mei also came along. She anxiously asked from outside the door, "Our Tang Bao has a high fever. Zhang Yi, please help us." Before she even finished speaking, I tossed a box of fever-reducing medicine through the small door window. "Give it to the child quickly. Don't waste any more time." Uncle Yu hurriedly picked up the medicine, then said with a look of gratitude, "Zhang Yi, thank you so much. You've helped me out twice already in this apocalypse." Just then, Xiao Mei stepped forward and pleaded, "Zhang Yi, do you have a heater? Could Tang Bao stay at your place for a while? We'll leave once she gets better." However, I saw through her little scheme immediately. "You're probably wanting to take a mile when given an inch." So, I spoke calmly to those outside. "Sorry, Miss Xia, these are special times, and I can't easily let outsiders in. Plus, we're almost out of coal. We're even resorting to wearing 8 down jackets each to keep warm." At that moment, Uncle Yu quickly intervened to smooth things over. "Zhang Yi has already done us a big favor. Let's not make things difficult for him." However, Xiao Mei began to emotionally manipulate the situation. "Zhang Yi, please consider it for Uncle Yu's sake, and for the sake of the child being so young. Let us stay at your place for a short time." Hearing this, my expression instantly darkened. I thought to myself, what a master manipulator this Xiao Mei is. She survived for quite some time in the previous apocalyptic world by exploiting people's sympathies. But this trick will only work on honest people like Uncle Yu. So I calmly replied, if this were before the apocalypse, Miss Xia, I'd have no problem letting you and your entire village stay. But now it's the end times, and all the tenants in the building want to take over my place. I hope you understand. However, Xia Lime wasn't giving up. You let Zhou Kier stay, didn't you? If she can stay, why can't we? Hearing this, I chuckled. Zhou Kier is my girlfriend. If she doesn't stay at my place, should she stay at yours? Zhou Kier was surprised to hear this. Although she knew I was just speaking casually, having a dependable man to rely on in these times is what every woman desires. At that point, Uncle Yu also chimed in. Yeah, little Zhang has already helped us a lot. Let's not make things more difficult for him. But Xia Lime looked dejected. I'm doing all of this for the sake of the child. What will happen to me if something happens to her? Seeing the situation, Uncle Yu felt helpless. He could only leave with her while continually apologizing to me. After they left, I sighed. With this woman meddling, I fear it might strain my relationship with Uncle Yu. In my eyes, Uncle Yu is the ideal worker. Not only is he upright, but he's also quite skilled. Now with Xia Lime whispering in his ear, my plans might be delayed. On the other side, as soon as Uncle Yu got home, he began questioning Xia Lime. Medicine is scarce right now. It's good enough that he gave us some. Why are you so greedy? Xia Lime, holding the child, looked distressed. I'm doing this for our child and our future. I don't plan to freeload off him forever. Hearing this, Uncle Yu sighed. I understand what you mean, but we should be grateful. If it weren't for little Zhang warning me about the snow disaster, I wouldn't be alive today. Upon hearing this, Xia Lime began to ponder. If Zhang Yi knew about the snow disaster in advance, he must have hoarded a lot of supplies. She leaned on Uncle Yu's shoulder and sighed. I understand the principle, but while you see him as a benefactor, he sees you as a potential threat. Didn't you see? He even threw the medicine out to us, afraid that we would enter and take over his home. If he's genuinely a good person, how could he ruthlessly kill dozens of neighbors? In my view, he's just offering minor favors to use you as his henchman later. Before Xia Lime could finish, Uncle Yu loudly interrupted her. Enough. Yu Jiguang, can still distinguish between right and wrong. Please don't speak like this anymore. His angry outburst startled Xia Lime, who then apologized repeatedly. She knew that Uncle Yu was now angry and would have to find another opportunity to stir the pot. Uncle Yu then left, his face stern. Though he is honest and straightforward, he's not foolish. He knows exactly what Xia Lime is thinking. Xia Lime looked at the sleeping Tang Bao with a grim face. To survive in this apocalypse, I must be ruthless. Now, the deadly cold has persisted for 75 days, and the accumulated snow in the residential area has piled up to the height of an 8-story building. Leaving the area is nearly impossible, and the remaining tenants can only start looking for food nearby. At this moment, a group of unwelcome guests arrived in the snowy area. They are digging in the snow, and eventually unearthed a tunnel leading to my apartment complex. A few of them, holding shovels and hammers, crawled out from the tunnel. Without any hesitation, they headed straight for my apartment on the 24th floor. Just then, a tenant who was going out to dig for snow to eat ran into them. Seeing their malicious gaze, the tenant immediately dropped his bucket and started running. But 2 legs can't outrun a dozen. He was quickly knocked down by their shovels. Anything alive that they encounter will become their food. But they have something more important to do right now: to take over my home. This is because they recently found out that I have hoarded a large amount of food. In this end time when food and warmth are scarce, this information is undoubtedly a ticking time bomb. Once they take me down, they can live longer. Soon, this group confidently arrived at my front door. A young man skilled in demolitions stepped forward with a bundle of C4 explosives. After lighting the fuse, he sprinted towards the end of the corridor. Moments later, a deafening explosion resonated throughout the building. The loud noise instantly jolted me awake. Given the situation, I couldn't afford to think too much. I hurriedly grabbed my handgun and checked the surveillance equipment. I saw a group of unfamiliar faces sneaking around at the end of the hallway, discussing something. From the tools they were holding, I quickly confirmed their identity. They were a group of construction workers from the neighboring building. I remember that their group consists of about 20 or more people, and the fact that they're boldly heading for my place indicates that news of my stockpile has leaked. Outside my door, the group seemed puzzled. Old Donkey, what kind of crappy bomb did you bring? It can't even blow open a simple door. Hearing this, Old Donkey rubbed the back of his head. Maybe the explosives got damp, reducing their potency. Why don't we just break in? We're professionals at tearing down buildings. Seeing this unfold on my monitor, I was instantly furious. If the tiger doesn't show its might, you think I'm a sick cat, huh? I immediately took out the white phosphorus I had previously hoarded from another dimension. Quickly, I made some simple white phosphorus grenades, and along with some incendiary grenades, threw them out of the small window by the door. When white phosphorus grenades explode, they instantly generate temperatures of up to 1000 degrees Celsius, melting objects nearby. Soon, 2 people at the door who couldn't dodge in time were instantly melted by the high heat. The fire rapidly spread throughout the corridor. Old Donkey, who was on fire, was about to shout to his companions, but the next second, a bullet went straight through his head. I then picked up my handgun and fired several shots at the people outside. This scene left the team leader, second uncle, uncle, stunned on the spot. They had thought they could easily take over my home, but they didn't expect my house to be not only extremely secure, but also equipped with such lethal weapons. Soon, the last worker approaching my front door was shot dead by me. Looking at the several burning bodies on the ground, second uncle didn't dare hesitate any longer and hurriedly led the remaining people to escape back to the neighboring community, fearing that they too would be reduced to ashes if they were a second too slow. I, however, stared at the handgun that had run out of bullets and fell into deep thought. In this apocalyptic world, there will undoubtedly be interest groups stronger than these workers. To deal with these tough characters, I need to acquire even more powerful weapons. Moreover, these guys clearly came prepared. I must find an opportunity to completely eliminate them. I then returned to the room to comfort the already terrified Jokir. Don't be afraid, I've driven those people away. Hearing this, Jokir looked at me with tearful eyes. Although she knew we were now in an apocalyptic world, this was her first time encountering a firefight. If those people had broken in, she could imagine the terrible fate awaiting her. But upon hearing that I'd driven those people away, Jokir felt considerably relieved. As of now, I am her only support. She then asked me what had just happened. I briefly explained the situation. Upon hearing it, Jokir looked stunned. These people are much more dangerous than Chen Zhenghao. Chen Zhenghao was merely flaunting with a handgun, while these workers do physical work every day, making them naturally stronger than ordinary people, and they even know demolitions. We have to resolve this lingering problem as soon as possible. Otherwise, we won't even be able to sleep peacefully in the future. Upon finishing my thought, I took a look at my phone. It's time to find some expendable people to do some work for me. At the same time, the homeowners group chat was blowing up. I simply explained the situation in the group. Upon seeing the message, the homeowners started to fawn over me. Johnny, you are our hero. However, I told them that my weapons were almost depleted and everyone would have to fend for themselves. Just then, Uncle Yu called me to inquire about my situation and mentioned he knows the leader of those workers, a man named Huang Tianfang. Under his leadership, dozens of homeowners have already been harmed in the past few days. Hearing this, an idea instantly formed in my mind. Uncle Yu, can you provide me with more details about them? That way, I can discuss plans with everyone to deal with them. Uncle Yu told me that this group comes from the building next door and are part of a group called Heavenly United Gang. The gang consists of more than 20 members, with Huang Tianfang as the ruthless leader. His misdeeds are no less than those of Chen Zhenghao. Hearing this, I decided to collaborate with the homeowners on the 25th floor to counteract these workers. They've suffered a significant loss at my hands this time and will definitely look for another opportunity to strike back. Unless we eliminate them, nobody will be at peace. The homeowners in my building are the sort who only respond to force and would not easily agree to unite against external threats. What I need to do now is wait for the right moment. I then turned to Jokir beside me. These neighbors might show respect to me on the surface, but they'd love to tear me down behind my back. So, I'll leave it to you and Uncle Yu to gather information. The sooner we understand the distribution of forces in the area, the better for our next steps. 2.5 days quickly passed. Jokir, dressed in work attire, listed the latest collected intelligence on a blackboard. The most significant threat right now is the Heavenly United Gang made up of workers. Since they are physically laboring workers, they are naturally stronger than ordinary people. However, the good news is that they don't have access to firearms or other highly lethal weapons. The next is the Wolf Gang from Building 21, led by two thugs, Wang Chang and Xiao Lu. Their members are mostly young people in their 20s. Hearing this, I pondered. It seems that the main threats come from these two groups. Homeowners in the other buildings have already diminished their numbers through infighting, so they should not pose a threat to me. I then instructed Jokir to continue gathering information, emphasizing the importance of confirming whether they possess firearms or other weapons. On the other side, Huang Tianfang led the Heavenly United Gang back again. However, this time they didn't choose to directly attack my home, but decided to deal with the surrounding neighbors first. They said that if I don't come out, they'll eliminate all the other homeowners in Building 25. As expected, his words quickly ignited a strong reaction from all the homeowners in the building. Zhang, you're the one who caused all this trouble. Why should we have to bear it? If you have any conscience left, you'd step up now. Seeing the message, I couldn't help but laugh. These people never change, do they? I replied with a smile. You guys can't resist them, so why should I go out and get myself killed? You think you're the only ones with thick skin? What does this have to do with me? This instantly infuriated a few of my neighbors. Zhang, did a dog eat your conscience? Your house is safe as a turtle shell. Have you thought about us? Seeing this, I was immediately enraged. These idiots really don't know the meaning of the word death. What do your lives have to do with me? When you all ganged up on me, where was your talk of conscience then? You don't really think I won't take action against you, do you? Upon reading my message, several neighbors were left speechless because they knew I would really do it. They initially thought they would survive after Chen Zhenghao's death, but now a more ruthless Heavenly United Gang has arrived. If things continue this way, they'll be fertilizer long before the snowstorm ends. Looking at my neighbors who were on the verge of despair, I dialed Uncle Yu with a smile. Uncle Yu, it's your turn to perform. After a long silence, Uncle Yu suddenly spoke in the group chat. Don't be afraid, everyone. The Heavenly United Gang is at most 20+ people. As long as we work together, we can fend them off. Seeing the message, the homeowners suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. Uncle Yu is right. We'll all support you wholeheartedly. However, Uncle Yu then revealed that he hasn't eaten for several days. He said that if we want to win this fight, it would have to rely on Zhang Yi. Not only can my house afford 3 meals a day, but we also have weapons, making me the most suitable leader for the group. Seeing the message, I couldn't help but smile. I didn't expect Uncle Yu, this seemingly honest man, to be quite skilled at manipulating people. Soon Uncle Yu sent me a private message, asking what we should do next. Seeing that the timing was about right, I told Uncle Yu to keep supporting me in the chat. I must seize this opportunity to make everyone listen to me. Only then can our building be safe in the future. Then, I coldly stated in the homeowners group chat, I'm willing to talk more with you all only because of Uncle Yu. I can help, but under one condition, you all have to listen to me. No sneaky moves behind my back. Hearing this, many homeowners quickly responded, as long as you're not sending us to our deaths, we'll do whatever you say, Zhang Yi. Of course, I didn't believe these people would be so cooperative. I immediately replied, I won't send you to your deaths, but I will need you to take up arms against the Heavenly United Gang. Can you do that? The chat went silent. What's the difference between this and sending us to die? Seeing that no one was responding, I laughed. So you all want me to go out there and risk my life alone, is it? Shokir, who was standing beside me, was also speechless at these cowardly neighbors. I continued in the group chat, if that's the case, there's no need for further discussion. You can wait for the Heavenly United Gang to take you out one by one. My front door is made of steel, so I'm not worried. Seeing this, Uncle Yu hurriedly supported me in the group chat. If we continue like this, we're all doomed. Instead of waiting to be slaughtered, why not fight together for a chance at survival? Hearing this, the homeowners realized the severity of the situation. Uncle Yu was right. We might as well give it our all. Seeing that all the homeowners had no objections, I immediately stated, from now on, everyone must follow my instructions. If I find out anyone is trying to sit back and reap the benefits while doing nothing, don't blame me, Zhang Yi, for being ruthless. Hearing this, everyone in the group chat started tagging the other homeowners who were playing dead. We're at a life and death crossroads now, so pretending to be dead any longer would make it real. I also know the principle of ruling with a balance of kindness and sternness. So, I continued in the chat, since you all have chosen to follow me, I won't let you down. As long as you listen to my orders, I will go out and find supplies for you. To hold the building, they need at least basic combat capabilities, and luckily, I have already prepared some snowmobiles. In this snowy apocalypse, I am the only one who can move freely throughout the city. However, the homeowners looked confused after reading the message. Won't you freeze to death looking for supplies in this extreme cold? I assured them, I know what I'm doing. As a leader, I must do something for everyone. I've been a warehouse manager for 2 years and know the locations of nearby malls and supermarkets. My own supplies are also running out, and we need to find more if we want to survive. Hearing this, many homeowners were moved to tears, saying that they had chosen the right leader. But only I know the true nature of these people. In the apocalypse, human nature is the most unpredictable. The neighbors started to treat me like a god, saying that they would follow my orders without question. However, I didn't care about their flattery. If it weren't for fighting against the Heavenly United Gang, I wouldn't care whether they live or die. I can't forget the pain of being torn apart in my previous life. Shokir looked worried. The snowstorm has lasted so long, and the outside world is almost paralyzed. No one knows what dangers lurk outside. I put on my level 3 armor and smiled at Shokir. I've been wanting to go out and see for a while. Now is a good opportunity. Don't worry, there are enough supplies at home to sustain you. Shokir, knowing I still don't fully trust her, volunteered to go with me. I pinched her fair cheek and said, Woman, you should stay at home and wait for your man to return. With that, I turned around and left, assuring Shokir that I trust her completely now. Shokir was touched, but within 2 seconds, I secretly moved all the remaining food and coal at home into an alternate space. Then, I went down the stairs and arrived on the 4th floor. By now, the snow had piled up as high as the 3rd and 4th floors. I only needed to open the window to step directly outside, but as soon as I landed, the snow engulfed up to my knees. Luckily, before the apocalypse, I had stashed some snowmobiles in an alternate space. Otherwise, it would be impossible to move in snow piled meters high. I looked around and found that, apart from the sound of the snowstorm, the neighborhood was utterly silent. Seeing no one spying, I took a snowmobile from my alternate space, unaware that a shadowy figure in the building above was watching every move. Riding my beloved motorcycle, I headed out of the neighborhood. I'd been cooped up at home for so long, I was starting to get cabin fever. Finally, I have a chance to breathe some fresh air. After satisfying my urge to speed, I drove the snowmobile to the Heavenly Sea City Police Station. The primary purpose of this trip was to find more powerful weapons. The root of all fear in this post-apocalyptic world is insufficient firepower. The station was pitch black, seemingly abandoned long ago. However, a few steps in, I discovered some frozen cops huddled in a corner. Seeing their thin clothes made me uneasy. They must have been on the night shift when the extreme cold hit, without even proper clothing. After paying my respects to these officers who once protected the city, I covered them with a white cloth. Just then, I noticed a bunch of metal behind the cloth. It was a set of keys to all the rooms in the building. My face lit up at the sight. With these keys, keys. I can easily access the armory. After paying my respects to these heroes one last time, I began to search for the armory. Soon, a room labeled armory appeared before me. Upon opening the door, all sorts of weapons came into view. I even found a powerful sniper rifle. After some time spent defending my safe house, my shooting skills have reached the point of unerring accuracy. With these weapons, I have nothing to fear, even if several more Heavenly United gangs show up. I stretched out my hand, sucked all the weapons in the armory into my alternate space. Next, it's time to find supplies for those cannon fodder neighbors. Although my safe house can withstand various forms of artillery, it won't hold if someone blows up the building's load-bearing walls. The best approach is to use these expendable neighbors as my vanguard. The snow disaster has been ongoing for 2 months now, and the shopping centers near the residential area have surely been picked clean. So I went to a large suburban mall, now buried under snow. Based on memory, I cleared away the snow on the ground with my hand, then broke the skylight and slid down a rope. Seeing all the luxury goods in the mall, I couldn't help but feel sentimental. Before the apocalypse, it would take 2 months of salary without eating or drinking to afford just one item. Now, these luxury goods have become worthless debris. After storing some useful supplies in my alternate space, I went to the supermarket on the underground floor. Due to the extreme cold, the fruits inside have all frozen and spoiled. Some meat, though not rotten, had also frozen into zombie-like consistency. I picked out some still edible food and stuffed it into my bags. I wouldn't even want these items if they were given to me for free, but they'll suffice for dealing with the neighbors. Soon, I returned to the neighborhood with 2 large bags of supplies, and this scene was seen by a few members of the Heavenly United gang in the building next door. Seeing my snowmobile, Huang Tianfang's eyes immediately lit up. With such a vehicle, he could also easily go outside to find supplies in the future. The snowmobile's roar also attracted a crowd of neighbors, though greed was the prevalent emotion in their eyes. Uncle Yu, surprised, saw me carrying 2 large bags of supplies and said, "Little Zhang, you actually found this much in one go?" I sighed. With the snowstorm going on for so long, the local supermarkets have been emptied. Otherwise, I would have brought back even more. Despite the supplies being spoiled by the cold, it was enough to make all the neighbors drool. Seeing their eyes filled with eager anticipation, I immediately took out my handgun and warned, "I went through hell and high water to find these. I hope you appreciate that." Hearing this, Uncle Yu caught on and shouted, "Zhang Yi has brought us hope for survival. Shouldn't we thank him?" After that, he led the crowd in chanting, "Long live Zhang Yi." Seeing everyone chanting my name, I knew it was time for me to make a statement. I had Zhou Care pour out all the supplies I had found, and then I looked at everyone and said sternly, "Since you've all chosen to follow me, I won't let you down. But this is the most dangerous moment, and I, Zhang Yi, will not keep idlers. If you eat these supplies, you must pick up arms against the Heavenly United gang." Just then, members of the Heavenly United gang arrived at our building armed and shouted, "Hand over the food, or don't blame us for being rude." Seeing this, I knew the opportunity to test these neighbors had arrived. I pointed at the Heavenly United gang members outside and said coldly, "Anyone who can take down one of them will be rewarded with 5 people's worth of food." Hearing this, the neighbors hesitated for a moment, but seeing only 10 members of the Heavenly United gang outside, and considering they were a group of several dozen, they felt emboldened. So the neighbors, as if injected with chicken blood, armed themselves with pots and pans and charged. Seeing this, the Heavenly United gang members were stunned. These usually cowardly people, how come they are so brave today? Soon, both groups were fighting fiercely in the snow. For the sake of food, everyone was seeing red, and even if they were injured multiple times, they felt no pain. This was exactly what I wanted to see. I'm no saint, but if these neighbors are willing to fight for their lives, I certainly won't hesitate to provide them food. At this point, Uncle Yu shouted, "Everyone, let's go." They are not in the majority and can't hold on for long. With the addition of Uncle Yu, a retired soldier, the battle quickly turned one-sided. Seeing they were no match, the remaining Heavenly United gang members fled towards their building without looking back. Witnessing this, all the neighbors picked up their weapons and cheered. This was their first victory fought for their own survival. Zhou Care sighed at the sight of it all. Though we won, many people were severely injured, and without professional equipment and medication, they likely won't survive for long. Moments later, I gathered all the neighbors in the building's lobby. "You all did very well. As you've seen, this is the power of unity. As long as we work together, even the apocalypse may not be insurmountable." I then turned to the 2 young individuals who performed the best in the battle. "You both did extremely well. Keep up this momentum moving forward." I then handed them 2 portions of food. Seeing this, they were so moved that they burst into tears, finally able to eat a full meal in this apocalyptic world. The rest of the neighbors were filled with regret, wishing they had given it their all. This was exactly the kind of attitude I wanted to see, so that everyone would fight against external enemies without holding back. I then gestured broadly, calling the remaining people one by one to receive today's food. The neighbors who received less food were filled with regret, wishing they had contributed more earlier. Soon it was the turn of Su Hao, a wealthy second-generation individual, to collect his food. I tossed him a small piece of candy. "This is your food for today." Seeing that others had at least a piece of biscuit, and he only had a candy, he immediately roared, "This is not fair. Why do I get so little food?" I responded coldly, "You have the the audacity to complain? Others were fighting on the front lines, and you were merely shouting slogans from the back. Giving you a candy is already being extraordinarily generous. I hope you appreciate what you have. Hearing this, the neighbors who received less food felt a lot better. At least they weren't at the bottom. Who would have thought that Suhao would try to argue at this point, saying, there were so many people fighting, I couldn't even find a way to get in. I just laughed. I only care about results, not the process. If you couldn't find a way in, that's on you. Hearing this, Suhao became furious. This is unfair. You're clearly targeting me. As soon as his words fell, I gestured for two neighbors to restrain him. Who do you think you are to talk about fairness with me? The woman next door in her 40s managed to get in and throw a few punches, and here you are, a man in your 30s, telling me you couldn't find a way in? After saying this, I pointed a gun directly at Suhao, asking everyone, what should we do with someone so undisciplined and disobedient? Hearing this, the two neighbors holding Suhao gave him a solid beating. I then turned to all the neighbors and yelled, if anyone thinks I'm being overbearing, feel free to go find your own food. I, Zhang Yi, will not bother you. Seeing no objections, I clapped my hands. Very good. I hope everyone will follow the arrangements from now on. But Suhao, accustomed to being arrogant and domineering, was still not convinced. Zhang Yi, don't push people too far. His words had barely left his mouth when I stepped on his right hand. Suhao, face the reality. We're in a post-apocalyptic world now. You can't go back to your cushy life. I, Zhang Yi, won't support a waste like you who's only good for eating. I hope everyone takes this as a warning. I then asked Shokir to collect the remaining food to be distributed later. But just then, a voice sounded from behind the crowd. Brother Zhang Yi, I haven't received any food yet. Fang Yuqing and her best friend pushed their way through the crowd. Brother Zhang Yi treats me the best. You definitely didn't forget about Fang Yuqing, right? Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. Of course, I haven't forgotten about you too, because there was never any food allocated for you two in the first place. Upon hearing this, Fang Yuqing burst into tears. Brother Zhang Yi, aren't you most fond of me? But I pushed her away with one hand. I was just speaking casually. You didn't take it seriously, did you? Besides, I already have a girlfriend now. You don't think you're better than my Shokir, do you? Please stop bothering me from now on. Shokir naturally came over and acted affectionately with me. Seeing this, Fang Yuqing cried even harder. This can't be. You've been fawning over me for years. How can you go back on your word like this? At that, I just laughed. Before the apocalypse, you thought your looks could bait a whole Pacific Ocean of fish. But now we're in the post-apocalyptic world. How many packs of instant noodles do you think your face is worth? At this point, Suhao, who was lying on the ground, chimed in. This stinking woman wanted to reel me in before the apocalypse. Good thing I'm a smart rich second generation. Hearing this, the surrounding neighbors started gossiping. Who would have thought this seemingly innocent white lotus was actually a siren of the Pacific? Seeing the situation, Fang Yuqing tried to silence everyone, but no one paid any attention to her. Left with no choice, she yelled and ran away. I then rewarded the sensible Suhao with another candy. After that, I began to arrange the building's defense. Excluding the children who had no fighting capacity, we still had 47 people in building 25. So I decided that aside from me, Shokir, and the couple Uncle Yu, the others would be divided into 6 small groups, each with 7 to 8 people, on 25-hour shifts to guard against attacks from other buildings. If anything happens, everyone will hit the stair railing or other metal objects to alert everyone. The same incentives for killing enemies still apply. Whoever kills an outsider gets enough food for 5 people. Of course, those who want to slack off during their shifts will only get leftover food. After saying this, I patted Uncle Yu on the shoulder. As a military veteran, you're the most suitable person to arrange all of this. 2 days passed in a flash, and the Heavenly United Gang didn't seem to be in a hurry to attack. Shokir looked worried about the 2 days of peace. Strange occurrences always mean trouble. Meanwhile, I was on my tablet, learning about various ways to use firearms. The heavy snow had trapped the city, and the lower buildings were already covered in snow. At this rate, even if the heavy snow stops, it would take 2.5 months for the snow to melt. And in this post-apocalyptic world, human hearts are always more frightening than natural disasters. I then took out the firearms I'd obtained from the armory through the pocket dimension. Human hearts may be frightening, but as long as I have enough firepower, I'm not afraid of any number of enemies. And it even has an 8-power scope for observing the situation in the community. Then I took the sniper rifle to the balcony, ready to practice my rusty shooting skills. But at that moment, 2 figures appeared in my 8-power scope. Seeing this, a cold smile appeared on my lips. The Heavenly United Gang's bastards finally couldn't help themselves. However, seeing that they were heading towards the community garage, I immediately realized they are probably going for my snowmobile. Unfortunately for them, their efforts are destined to be futile. During the day, I pretended to leave the snowmobile in the garage, but actually, I'd already stored it in the pocket dimension. Just then, Uncle Yu called me to say that the personnel for the defense had been properly arranged, and told me not to take to heart what Xiaolime had said during the day. She's just a bit talkative. At this, I chuckled. I won't hold grudges against a woman over such things. But Uncle Yu, are you sure you want to raise a child for someone else? I really don't like Xiaolime, but I don't want to ruin my relationship with you either. Uncle Yu just laughed heartily. In these times, finding a woman is already a good thing. You You can't ask for too much. Hearing that, I teased. Uncle Yu, you're a strong and healthy man. You've got plenty of women who would like you. You should make an effort so that Xiaoli Mei has a child for you too. I wouldn't want you to waste all your effort only to have someone else benefit from it. At these words, Uncle Yu looked awkward. He was well aware that men usually care about their own bloodline, but that's something to think about in the future. After all, it's the end of the world and we can hardly get enough to eat, let alone have time to have children. As for other people's family matters, it's not my place to comment, especially when I've got my own problems to deal with. On the other side, a group from the Heavenly United Gang stealthily entered the first floor lobby under the cover of darkness. This time it was led by Huang Tianfeng's nephew, Huang Wei, and he brought along 8 people. Just as they arrived at the stair, a brick flew right towards him. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and dodged it, but then he heard a series of knocking sounds echoing through the stairwell. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Those bastards from Heavenly United Gang are here again. Hearing this, Huang Wei was instantly enraged. Brothers, charge with me. Let's finish off these cowards. So saying, he took the lead and rushed towards the stairwell. Little did he know that under my reward policy, the neighbors on duty were as motivated as if they'd been injected with adrenaline. Within moments, they'd taken down several people from the Heavenly United Gang. Seeing how fierce these neighbors were, Huang Wei immediately yelled for the remaining people to retreat. Watching the Heavenly United Gang members fleeing in disarray, the neighbors didn't plan on pursuing them. The snowstorm outside was too severe, and it would be dangerous if they were ambushed. The knocking sounds in the stairwell also woke me up from my sleep. These guys really know how to pick their timing. Just then, a thought suddenly sprang to my mind. Finally, I have a chance to practice my shooting skills. The saying goes, outside 100 steps, the gun is fast. Within 100 steps, the gun is both accurate and fast. I immediately took my beloved sniper rifle out from my pocket dimension. Today, none of you are getting away. I quickly set up the cannon and aimed at one of the fleeing goons. With the help of the 8x scope, I could even see the hairs in the man's nostrils clearly. As my index finger pulled the trigger, a deafening gunshot shattered the silent night, and the bullet hit the escaping thug squarely. Seeing this, I felt very pleased with myself. Am I really a natural-born marksman? The remaining people from Heavenly United Gang looked horrified as they saw their companion fall in a pool of blood. Holy shit, someone's shooting. Seeing this, they didn't hesitate and started running like their lives depended on it, back towards their own compound. Watching this scene, I couldn't help but smile. Then I set up the sniper rifle again. Just then, a strange sensation filled me, and it felt like the enemy in the scope was moving at a speed 1,000 times slower. As I pulled the trigger again, the fleeing goon got a headshot and went down. Realizing this, it dawned on me. It seems my awakened abilities are not limited to the pocket dimension. Maybe I also have a marksman's talent. To verify this speculation, I fired 5 consecutive shots. Without exception, each goon got a headshot and was killed. Seeing this, a smile appeared at the corner of my mouth. With this marksman's talent, all I need in the future is to find an appropriate sniping point, and that will be enough to deal with these intruders. My extraordinary marksmanship also startled everyone in the building, causing the neighbors to abandon any petty ideas they might have had about me. Their respect and awe for me shot through the roof at that moment. The next morning, Shokir made me a bowl of noodles. Then, with a nervous face, she asked, "Was it you who fired the gun last night?" Hearing her question, I smiled. That reckless Heavenly United Gang tried another sneak attack, so I had to send them to heaven. Upon hearing this, Shokir looked at me with eyes full of admiration. "Shang-Yi, you're amazing." Originally, Shokir chose to live under my protection just for survival, but now she was completely captivated by my charm. Outwardly, I kept a calm face, but inside I was thrilled. How did I go from being a simp in my past life to becoming a godlike figure in the eyes of beautiful women? It's a complete reversal. Meanwhile, on the other side, members of the Heavenly United Gang looked at the bodies in the snow and fell silent. Their repeated attempts to raid us had yielded nothing, not even a scrap of food. Instead, they'd lost their men, including Huang Tianfeng's nephew. Initially, they could use their brute force to bully people, but now they realized I had such a powerful weapon at my disposal. What could they even play against me? Moreover, given their current situation, they would soon starve if they couldn't get any food. Thinking this, Huang Tianfeng hardened his heart, ordering his men to bring back the bodies of Huang Wei and the others. This way, they could prolong their survival for a little longer. On the other side, I was patrolling the building and checking on the neighbors on duty. As usual, after last night's events, everyone's attitude towards me had turned into genuine awe. They were very clear that, under my leadership, they could survive longer in this post-apocalyptic world. Then I rode my beloved snowmobile and left the community again. Not long ago, Uncle Yu had provided me with the location of a nearby army camp. After asking him to take good care of the people in the base, I headed towards the army camp's location. This scene was witnessed by the Wolf Gang from Building 21. Puzzled them was where I had hidden the snowmobile, because earlier, they had turned the entire underground garage upside down, but found nothing. If they had a snowmobile, they could freely go on shopping sprees in various malls. With more supplies, they could expand their territory and recruit more people, becoming local warlords in this apocalyptic world. On the side, Xiao Lu nodded in agreement. In troubled times, heroes emerge. Now is the the perfect time for us brothers to take the throne. Thinking of this, Wang Chang's eyes were bloodshot. We must get our hands on that snowmobile. On the other hand, I rode my snowmobile, galloping through the snow. Before going to the army camp, I decided to first scavenge the materials around the city. Heavy snow had been falling for 3 months now, and some small shops were already buried. To get supplies, I could only look for a few independent large supermarkets in the city. Then I remembered the Walmart South warehouse where I used to work. Though the largest warehouse had been emptied by me before the apocalypse, there were still several smaller ones nearby, which were sure to have useful supplies. Soon, I drove to Walmart's South warehouse. Products from hundreds of groups throughout Heavenly Sea City were concentrated here. If I took all the supplies back, it would be enough to sustain thousands of people. However, when I broke the skylight, I discovered that most of the supplies had already been moved before the snow disaster. Still, I went down through the skylight to see if there was anything left. Quickly, I found several heavy-duty trucks and a bunch of luxury sports cars inside. Although they seemed useless now, who knows if they might come in handy for showing off later. Then, I went on to scavenge some useful supplies from a few other warehouses. Afterward, I drove to the gas station. I definitely need to use the snowmobile as my daily means of transportation, so I may not have enough fuel in the future. To my surprise, the gas station was so covered in snow that only a signpost remained visible. This is problematic. If only I had an excavator right now. Thinking this, I suddenly stood up from the snow. Didn't I put a few excavators into my alternate space earlier? Immediately, I took out an excavator from my alternate space. The snow had not yet formed a hard ice layer, so digging out the gas station would be easy. Fortunately, I had experience driving forklifts in the warehouse before, so operating this wouldn't be an issue. Then I started digging towards the gas station with the excavator. After digging for 2 hours, a clear metallic clang came from the shovel, and the gas station's large roof platform gradually began to appear. Next, I went inside the gas station to find the fuel storage. Generally, fuel storage for gas stations is underground. I then found the basement door and pried it open with a crowbar. However, before entering, I quickly removed any static electricity from my body to prevent accidents. Soon, several large fuel tanks appeared before my eyes. With these fuel reserves, I can gallop through the snow again in the future. I then dismantled the hose on top of the fuel tanks and used plastic wrap to seal the opening of the tanks to prevent gasoline leakage. Just as I was about to put the entire fuel tank into my alternate space, I suddenly realized something very important. Under these meter-thick layers of snow, almost everyone was practically immobile, but not me. In addition to freely traversing the snowy landscape, I also had several excavators with me. That is to say, all the resources buried under the heavy snow were now essentially at my disposal. After storing the gas station's fuel into my alternate space, it was already 8 o'clock in the evening, so I decided to rest here for the night and visit the army camp that Uncle Yu had mentioned during the day. Meanwhile, back in the residential area, a neighbor's child had a high fever, reaching 40 degrees Celsius. At this, Jokir looked helpless because her medicine box no longer had any emergency medications. Just then, Uncle Yu came over with a box of children's fever medicine. This is the fever medicine that Zhang Yi provided before. There's a little left. Let's use it for the child. He then patted the shoulder of the neighbor. Don't worry, when Zhang Yi comes back this time, I'm sure life will get better for everyone. With Uncle Yu's fever medicine, the child's high fever finally subsided. However, Jokir reminded the mother to pay close attention to her baby's condition, as infants are highly susceptible to illness in this extreme cold weather. After giving her advice, Jokir and Uncle Yu began their routine patrol. They had barely taken a few steps when a woman's scream came from behind them. Auntie Lin from the neighborhood committee was seen lunging at the child in the mother's arms with a small knife, shouting, "My grandson is dead. Your children shouldn't be allowed to live either." Out of maternal instinct, the mother immediately turned to block the knife. Seeing this, Jokir quickly caught the baby who slipped from the mother's arms, and the mother, entrusting her child to Jokir, collapsed in a pool of blood. At this moment, Auntie Lin pointed at Jokir and yelled, "It's all you heartless people who killed my little Hu. None of you will get away." Seeing Auntie Lin, who was now entirely unhinged, Jokir knew that talking wouldn't help. She immediately ran towards the stairwell while holding the child, but was caught by Auntie Lin, who grabbed her ankle. Auntie Lin ranted with her knife in hand, "Especially you, Dr. Zhou. You deserve to die for not saving little Hu." Just as she was about to stab Jokir, Uncle Yu appeared in the nick of time and kicked Auntie Lin to the ground. He was cut by the knife on his left hand, but seeing that Jokir was unharmed, he felt relieved. If anything had happened to Jokir, he wouldn't have the face to explain it to me. By this time, Auntie Lin had completely lost her sanity, biting anyone she could get her hands on. "You Jiguang, you coward. It's your fault for not killing Chen Zhenghao. You owe little Hu a life too," she yelled. She then turned to the neighbors who were watching. "All of you deserve to die, and that Zhang Yi deserves to die too, for not sending medicine to my little Hu." Hearing this, Uncle Yu instantly became furious. If it weren't for Zhang Yi taking out Chen Zhenghao, none of us might have survived until now. "It's not your turn, you mad dog, to be biting people here." At this point, Jokir stepped forward and said, "Zhang Yi did send medicine for you, but by the time I delivered it, it was already too late. Your precious precious grandson had already been turned into a pot of rice porridge by you. Upon hearing these words, Auntie Lin fell into another frenzy, shouting, "It's impossible! It's impossible!" Two neighbors stepped forward to mock her. "Today we finally see what loving someone too much to even put them in your mouth really means. You always claim to adore your precious grandson, yet this is the extent of your love? You, who have committed countless evils, let us send you on your way." With that, one of the neighbors ignited a lighter, letting Auntie Lin feel some warmth before her death. Meanwhile, on the other side, I yawned as I walked out of the tent. It was time to head to the army camp. Following the guidance of the retired soldier, Uncle Yu, I rode my snowmobile to the nearby military camp. I then took out an excavator from my pocket dimension. With the experience from digging out the gas station last time, I got to work smoothly. Soon enough, I had uncovered the entrance to the camp's dormitories. Puzzled me was that the camp was completely empty, given how sudden the snow disaster was, and considering the remote location of the camp, as well as the lack of transportation, the military should not have been able to evacuate in time. But at that moment, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. Could it be that the military had prior knowledge of the coming snow disaster, and had thus evacuated their troops and resources in advance? The thought sent shivers down my spine. If that was truly the case, whoever possessed these large amounts of supplies and weapons post-disaster would be able to establish a new order in this apocalyptic world. I could foresee the setting turning into a battleground for various armed factions vying for control. I must arm myself in advance to prepare for this new era. With that thought, I continued to operate the excavator, digging fervently, accompanied by a booming noise. I made a large hole in the wall of the weapons arsenal, but the next second, I was stunned. Inside was a dazzling array of military supplies. Aside from tons of various types of firearms and bullets, there were several large boxes of hand grenades. I came in expecting to find some scraps, but ended up with a massive haul. However, tanks and some heavy armored vehicles were not there. Could it be that the military had simply gone out on a mission and took only a portion of the weapons? I didn't dwell on it. What I had gathered was more than enough for now. If I needed to replenish my firepower later on, I could just go to another military camp to scavenge. After storing all the military supplies in my pocket dimension, I rode my snowmobile back home. However, the neighbors noticed that I returned empty-handed and immediately started to accuse me. "Zhang, you've been out for 2 days, and you couldn't find any food? Did you hoard it all for yourself?" Hearing this, I laughed. "Am I giving you guys too much face? Just 2 days apart, and you all have grown arrogant. Don't forget who saved you ungrateful folks in the first place, since you like to take advantage of kindness. From now on, we're on our own. You can find your own food." Seeing this, a neighbor hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. "Brother Zhang, don't take it to heart. That's not what everyone means. It is really hard to find food out there in the snow. You should go back and rest." Meanwhile, inside Building 25, when everyone learned that I hadn't brought back any food, resentment quickly filled the air. In their eyes, they had already worked hard enough defending the building for me. They didn't expect me to also show them an attitude. At that point, a person wearing a little red hat stepped forward with feigned sincerity, saying, "Zhang, it must be exhausting to go find food all by yourself. Why don't you take some of us with you next time? After all, there's strength in numbers." He has a small knife hidden behind his back. At that moment, 2 other neighbors stepped forward to back him up. "Zhang, if you need us, we're willing to go through hell and high water for you." Hearing this, I couldn't help but scoff internally. These neighbors with ulterior motives, I knew they were up to no good. Then I reached into my pocket. The next second, I pulled out a gun and shot the guy in the little red hat in the head. "Don't think I don't know what you're up to. I don't believe a single word, not even the punctuation, from any of you. It looks like I've been too kind to you all, so much so that you've forgotten how you managed to survive this far. Without me, you would have long become food for Chen Zhenghao and his gang." Hearing this, a few neighbors hastily tried to defend themselves. "Zhang, don't go overboard. We just wanted to discuss something with you. Nothing more." But before they could finish, I fired several more shots. In the blink of an eye, the 2 leading the conversation were taken care of. Seeing this, the remaining few scattered in all directions, fleeing for their lives. The gunshots quickly attracted Uncle Yu and 2 others. Shokir rushed over, her face filled with concern, asking if I was hurt. I squeezed her little hand. "Those guys don't have what it takes to hurt me." Uncle Yu, upon learning the reason, was also furious. "These fools really deserve to die. A few full meals, and they've forgotten who they should rely on." I just smiled. I've always been a kind person. I can't be bothered to go after the ones who fled. Hearing this, Xiaolime felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew I did this as a warning to others. I then began to plan for the future. After all, relying solely on these expendables won't keep this building secure forever. Upon returning to the safe house, I asked Shokir if anything happened during the 2 days I was away. Shokir reported that Auntie Lin had gone mad because of the death of her grandson and had killed a mom who lived upstairs. However, she was also taken care of by 2 neighbors. "There's also someone from Building 9 named Chen Lingyu who wants to discuss something with you. However, the specific details of the cooperation must be handled by you personally." I was unimpressed. I have supplies and weapons. What could this woman possibly offer to make me want to cooperate with her? Then I asked Shokir about this woman's identity. From her, I learned that Chen Lingyu was the owner of a cosmetics company in Heavenly Sea City before the apocalypse post-apocalypse. Now, using her strong methods, she has completely taken control of Building 9. Upon hearing this, I was quite surprised. This Chenling Yu must have some real skills. A woman managing an entire building. Shokir noticed my interest and asked, why don't you at least find out what she wants to cooperate on? I'm also curious to know how a woman managed to get an entire building to fall in line. Just then, I received 2 friend requests on my phone. In addition to Chenling Yu, there was also one from my company's previous financial director, Li Jian. What could this guy want? As soon as I accepted the friend requests, Chenling Yu messaged me right away, asking if we could chat. I got straight to the point. If you have something to say, say it. She replied that typing was inconvenient for her and wanted to have a voice chat instead. I promptly refused. Seeing this, she didn't dare to take things lightly. She initially wanted to use her pre-apocalypse persuasion techniques to win me over, but I gave her no chance. Moreover, since we're in the same residential complex, she's well aware of my capabilities and means, so she had no choice but to communicate via text. She wrote, Mr. Zhang Yi, I've long heard of your reputation. I know you have a snowmobile and can go out to find supplies. Therefore, I hope to cooperate with you in gathering resources. I couldn't help but smile. If we cooperate, what can you offer me? Chenling Yu responded that the building she manages is relatively harmonious and the number of survivors is quite large. They could provide me with manpower for expanding territories. However, the precondition is that I would need to provide food for these laborers. Before I could reply, Chenling Yu continued to babble on. Mr. Zhang Yi, you are currently a target for everyone. The reason thousands of people in the entire community haven't attacked Building 25 en masse is that they're weighing the pros and cons. But if you provide us with food, at least you would be rid of the threat from our Building 9. I chuckled after reading the message. So, are you threatening me? If I don't agree, are you planning to launch an attack? Chenling Yu smugly responded, Mr. Zhang Yi, you're a smart man. Cooperating with us would result in a win-win situation. I smiled. This is the first time I've seen someone beg so boldly. Let me think for a few days. I then stared out the window, deep in thought. Would everyone in the community turn against me? I'm not afraid if they come at me one by one, but if they were to join forces like Chenling Yu suggested, they might very well tear down the entire building. Although there isn't enough electricity and heavy machinery outside to destroy the building, it wouldn't be good if a few experts in explosives got involved. Just as I was pondering what to do, I received a new message on my phone. It was my former colleague Li Jian, who went on and on. Mr. Zhang, we sincerely hope to cooperate with you to build a harmonious post-apocalyptic utopia. Under my management, everyone in Building 18 gets along well. However, we're currently lacking food resources and hope to work with you. Beyond that, I can also help you coordinate relationships with other buildings. I smiled after reading the message. Intellectuals sure know how to put things nicely. Not only do they know how to manage, but they can also maximize benefits. Next, I asked Zhou Kir about the situation in Building 18. She indicated that Li Jian indeed was very capable. Not only did he unify all the residents after the apocalypse, but his approach of equitably distributing resources also helped the vast majority to survive. I chuckled. All of this is just a facade. Their unity is built on the foundation that they still have food. Once that runs out, who knows what will happen. Then, I looked at other friend requests from building owners on my phone. They were all seeking cooperation as well. Now, I only have 2 choices. Either go to war with them, or cooperate. I then asked Shokir, is there a way to have the best of both worlds? Shokir said that while it may be unrealistic, we could just leave this community and start fresh somewhere else. I was speechless at her suggestion, saying that's like not saying anything at all, unless we find a place with no people and become hermits. The next morning, I had Shokir dismantle the bulletproof vest to tie it around my legs as makeshift bulletproof pants. After a night of contemplation, I already knew what to do next. Then, I tagged everyone in the community group chat. Our Building 25 is facing a major crisis. Some of the nearby buildings are jealous that I can go out and find food for everyone, and they're threatening to attack our building if I don't hand over the food and snowmobile. As soon as this message was posted, the chat exploded. What the hell do they think they're doing? Can't they find food on their own? To ignite everyone's fighting spirit, I continued in the group chat. I only have one snowmobile. If I give it up, everyone will be left to fend for themselves, so we have to defend our food supply at all costs. Seeing this, I felt a sense of relief. I hope these people don't turn on me later. Just then, I received a message on my phone. Chenling Yu had added me to a discussion group for community building owners. Looks like they're preparing to confront me. Wang Chang from Building 21 immediately jumped in, sarcastically saying, Zhang Yi, I heard you've been living the good life recently, always having food to eat. You're comfortable but not thinking about us, your poor neighbors. Huang Tianfang from Building 26 also directly threatened, if you abandon the negotiations now, we can't guarantee what will happen. Only Li Jian from Building 18 acted as a mediator. Then Li Jian stated the conditions for negotiation. First, Zhang Yi, you must provide us with supplies to ensure basic survival. Second, your snowmobile must become communal, allowing everyone to take turns using it. Finally, you must share all known resource locations with everyone. If you don't accept, you'll become the enemy of the entire community. Seeing this, I chuckled. These guys could just rob me, but they pretend it's negotiation. Looks looks like I need to seize an opportunity to deal with all of them at once, but they are thousands in number. If I were to act, it would be a bit difficult. Just then, an idea occurred to me. Handling thousands of people might be tough, but dealing with a few building owners should be much more manageable. So, I pretended to discuss negotiation locations with them, and began to arm myself. They have no accurate assessment of my firepower. Once they arrive at the agreed location, a single grenade from me will either kill or severely injure them. Then the thousands of residents will be like a dragon without a head, easily defeated. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Uncle Yu was distributing food to neighbors to replenish their strength because the negotiation time was approaching. Everyone needed to be well fed to defend Building 25. Neighbors who hadn't had a full meal in days were so moved they shed tears. My appearance immediately caused a sensation among everyone. Can we really return to normal life after these negotiations? I smiled. As long as this negotiation ends successfully, the food problem will be solved, and there will be no more bloodshed. So, everyone needs to be on their A game today, defending your own posts. Victory is on the horizon. Hearing this, everyone was moved to tears, vowing that in the next life, they would still want to be my loyal followers. Then I led everyone to the agreed negotiation spot, while I hid among the crowd, looking for an opportunity to strike. Soon, parties from various buildings gathered in the center of the community square. Seeing that the opposing side had turned out in full force, my face was filled with surprise. Do you really need this many people for a negotiation? This is clearly meant to pressure me. I immediately called Uncle Yu and asked him to meet them with a team first, while I stayed behind to provide firepower. Saying that, I set up a sniper rifle and acted as a sniper. At this point, people from various sides had already surrounded Uncle Yu and the others. Seeing this, Uncle Yu couldn't help but sweat. These people aren't here for a negotiation. They're clearly here to eliminate us. A nervous neighbor then asked, Uncle Yu, there are too many of them. Even if each of us took on 10 people, it still wouldn't be enough. Uncle Yu assured him not to worry. Their main target is to pressure Zhang Yi into negotiating. Besides, we don't have anything they would want. The building owners stood at the front of the crowd with smug faces, thinking the negotiation was already in the bag. Yu also looked pleased. Zhang Yi might be intimidating alone, but with thousands of us, what's there to fear? On their way to the negotiation, these building owners had already agreed not to give me a chance to isolate any of them. At this point, Wang Chang chuckled. See, we can scare Zhang Yi just by our sheer numbers. He's probably gone back to change his diapers by now. Yu, growing impatient, said, enough with the nonsense. Let's get Zhang Yi out here to negotiate. Once he accepts the predetermined conditions, it's over. Hearing this, Wang Tianfang stepped forward and shouted, where's Zhang Yi? Get him out here to negotiate now. If he makes us wait any longer, he's going to regret it. Uncle Yu looked at the group and said, our boss is waiting for you upstairs. Weren't all the building owners supposed to come for the negotiation? Li Jian adjusted his glasses. We've discussed it. The 5 of us building owners will represent everyone. Hearing this, Uncle Yu didn't say much more. Fine, but only the 5 of you building owners are allowed in, and you must also consent to a search. Hearing this, Yu and Wang Chang burst into laughter. What does Zhang Yi think he is? Making conditions at this time? Do you believe we can wipe all of you out right now? Seeing them act so arrogantly, how could I tolerate it? I immediately called Uncle Yu and told him to have everyone retreat 20 meters. Although he didn't know what I was planning, Uncle Yu still complied and led everyone to move back. Seeing this, Wang Chang threatened, don't play tricks on us. With so few of you, even our saliva could drown you. Soon both parties were separated by more than 20 meters. But Wang Chang and his group didn't care at all. They had overwhelming numbers and never considered that something unexpected could happen. But the unexpected happened the next second. I blew a whistle from behind Uncle Yu. Here's an appetizer for you guys. I then threw a hand grenade toward the position where Wang Chang and his group were. The grenade landed perfectly in the middle of the crowd. Before anyone could even curse, a deafening explosion erupted in the middle of the crowd. When the smoke cleared, all that remained was a large hole, about 10 meters wide, and several corpses. Uncle Yu then walked forward with a phone, from which my voice was heard. Think you're all that just because you have more people? I have 200 more boxes of grenades like this. After throwing the grenade, everyone was instantly frozen in shock. No one could figure out where I got the grenades from, let alone what other heavy weapons I might have. Wang Chang glared, speaking into the phone to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi, we came here to negotiate. What you're doing is completely unacceptable. Zhang Yi scoffed. Do you really need to bring over 1,000 people for a negotiation? Is this your sincerity? Zhang Yi glanced at his watch. Less than 5 minutes left for the negotiation. If I don't see you guys within that time, we're done talking. We'll just start fighting. Upon hearing this, everyone immediately panicked, knowing they wouldn't stand a chance if a fight broke out. They hurriedly ran toward the 13th floor. Zhang Yi stood on the 13th floor, watching the crowd of people running away below. After all, I only have 20 boxes of grenades. Better save them for later. He leisurely waited for Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang and the others to arrive. A few minutes later, several people ran up, panting heavily. Zhang Yi looked at the people in front of him, somewhat disappointed. He had initially wanted to gather all the building owners together for a comprehensive sweep, but now he had only 5 representatives. He would have to implement his second plan. After everyone was seated, Li Jian threw out the previously discussed proposal, asking Zhang Yi to provide materials for their labor force while they provided the labor. Otherwise, all the workers would unite to attack Zhang Yi's apartment building. Zhang Yi, uninterested in further discussion, simply pulled out a handgun and slapped it on the table with a loud bang. All 5 faces changed color, and they subconsciously thought of running away. Wang Chang stuttered. Zhang Yi, what do you mean by this? Even if you kill us, the whole community will not let you go. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. Why are you guys so nervous? I just felt that this handgun was in the way, so I took it out to let it air. Everyone, relax. Let's sit down and continue the talk, Zhang Yi said with a smile. First of all, your demand is something I can't agree to. Taking responsibility for the supplies of the entire community is an impossible task for anyone. Most importantly, if you've been able to control the residents of a building in these hard times, you're clearly smart people. As far as I know, you're not so charitable as to go hungry yourselves while caring about your neighbors, are you? Zhang Yi slapped the table. Here are my terms for cooperation. If you don't accept them, then we go to war. He raised an eyebrow and continued. I can provide you with food, but here's the catch. Only enough for 10 people per building. Who gets this food and who divides it is up to you and should be settled within your own building. Then Zhang Yi made a helpless gesture. Supplying food for around 300 people daily is already the maximum I can manage. As soon as he finished speaking, Qinlingyu looked furious. Unacceptable. Are you treating us like beggars? 10 portions of supplies are too few. I have 76 survivors alone, and just among my own company employees, there are over 20. How are we supposed to divide that? Seeing this, I slammed my gun on the table. It seems there's no room for negotiation then. Let the war begin. Upon hearing this, Wang Tianfang quickly stepped forward. Don't listen to this woman's nonsense. She doesn't represent all of us. However, providing for only 10 people per building really isn't enough to go around. Wang Chan on the side also agreed. This amount of supplies is not enough for them to explain to other building owners. Can we add a little more? But I just loaded my gun. Do you really think I'm a saint? Providing food for 300 people daily, and you still complain? Seeing this, Li Jian quickly approached and said, Zhang Yi, don't be impulsive. Let's think about it. You first mention other conditions. I, however, placed my foot on the table. Now, let's have a real talk about what you all should do. If we want sustainable development, just scavenging for supplies won't last forever. No one knows how long this snow will fall. I threw a bag of seeds on the table. Only by working ourselves can we have enough. These are seeds I found outside. I think we can plant crops. Only then can we have a continuous and stable supply of food. Hearing this, Qinlingyu and his group were all stunned. Zhang Yi, have you gone mad? It's minus 80 degrees outside. The snow is meters thick. How can anything grow in that? I just smiled. Can't you dig through the thick snow? There's plenty of land outside for you to grow crops. Only this way can we develop sustainably. Who knows how long this snow will continue? Even if I gave you 1,000 snowmobiles, the outside supplies will eventually run out. So why not start today and learn from our ancestors to work with our own hands to get food? If I can see tangible progress in your farming, I don't mind giving you more supplies, including tobacco, clothes, and medical supplies. Upon hearing this, both Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang were delighted. Brother Zhang Yi, can you get cigarettes too? You should know these two are heavy smokers. They haven't smoked since the snow disaster began. They are almost suffocating now. I just smiled, pulling out a freshly opened pack of cigarettes from my pocket. Want to try one? Seeing this, the two lit up immediately. Both had expressions of pure enjoyment on their faces. They both said as long as they are provided with cigarettes daily, they'd agree to any conditions. Seeing this, Li Jian on the side wanted to remind them of the main issue, but I interrupted him. No problem. I can provide a pack for both of you every day. Then, I happily reached an agreement with Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang. Seeing this scene, Li Jian and his companions could only sigh in exasperation. These two fools were bought off so easily. Seeing these idiots about to ruin things, Li Jian immediately tried to negotiate for more conditions. However, before he could even speak, Wang Chang interrupted him. What's there to negotiate? The conditions Zhang Yi offered are already very good. We'll do as he said. Huang Tianfang also chimed in. Brother Zhang Yi has already given us a lot of respect. We should also consider his difficulties, don't you think? This left Li Jian speechless. It's not the godlike opponents one should fear, but the pig-headed teammates. At this point, the building owner Zhang Yunian spoke up. It's not up to just the 5 of us. We should also consult the other building owners who aren't here. Hearing this, Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang once again acted like the inept teammates they were. What are you talking about? Didn't we agree that just the 5 of us would make the decision? Ignoring their quarrels, I looked out the window. I saw a group of people gathering at the entrance of building 25 where I was. Seeing this, I drew my pistol and shouted, "What's the meaning of this? Did you arrange for these people to ambush us during the negotiation?" Wang Chang raised his hands in surrender. Brother Zhang Yi, all the building owners are here. Who would dare to ambush? Isn't that just seeking death? Li Jian quickly tried to explain. It seems those people below couldn't wait. They've already started organizing an attack on their own. Seeing this, I pointed my gun at them threateningly. Sit down and stay still. Just then, Uncle Yu arrived with a group of men in the negotiation room. Following my instructions, they temporarily restrained the 5 of them. I then went to the balcony with my heavy gun. Such fools, not valuing their lives. Without another word, I took aim at the man leading the charge. Being Being a sniper, I took 2 out with a single shot, instantly blasting the heads of 2 lackeys. Seeing this, the group was panicked and disarrayed. Zhang Yi has a sniper rifle. Everyone, take cover. Seeing their fear, I couldn't help but smile. The more scared you are, the more excited I become. Then, I fired several more shots, taking out a few more lackeys. The 5 in the negotiation room dared not even breathe. After wiping the smoking barrel of my gun, I turned to them and asked, "Do any of you have any objections now?" Hearing this, Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang were the first to raise their hands, signaling they had no objections. Chen Lingyu and Zhang Yunian followed suit, agreeing to my terms. Seeing this, Li Jian couldn't say much and reluctantly raised his hand in agreement. I smiled and said, "Good. If everyone had been this reasonable from the start, it would have been better, right? Why force me to act? Peace is more profitable." With that, I patted Li Jian on the shoulder. "Go back and do as I told you. No tricks." With the negotiations concluded amicably, Li Jian and the others left Building 25. Just as my neighbors were concerned about my well-being, I approached them with a smile, saying, "Don't worry, everything has been settled." Hearing this, they began to flatter me. "These idiots, they deserve a few bullets from a sniper rifle to show them your prowess." I then explained the details of the negotiations to everyone. Upon hearing the terms, my neighbors looked concerned. "Why should we provide so much food to these people every day? We barely have enough for ourselves." I simply smiled and responded, "If we didn't agree to these terms, do you think you could fight 100 of their thousands?" I continued, speaking with righteous indignation, "You all don't need to worry too much. I swear, as long as I, Zhang Yi, am alive, I won't let any of you starve. So please, trust me." Hearing these words, everyone was deeply moved, shedding tears. In this post-apocalyptic world, where food is scarce and warmth is hard to find, having such a leader is a true blessing. They all vowed to follow me to the very end, but Uncle Yu looked puzzled on the side. After all, it's the end of the world. Nobody would choose to play the saint, right? I just smiled and said, "Don't overthink it, Uncle Yu. Cooperating with them is just a temporary measure." I then laid out my original plan to Uncle Yu in detail. My initial idea was to lure all their leaders over and then eliminate them all at once. Without their leaders, the other buildings would be leaderless, making them easy to conquer. But who would have thought they'd only send 5 representatives? So, we have to play the long game now. While I promise to provide food for 300 of their people daily, this will inevitably lead to unequal food distribution among them. Once internal conflicts arise, they'll turn on each other. At that point, we can simply sit back and reap the benefits. Hearing this, Uncle Yu had a moment of realization. It's always you, Zhang Yi, thinking steps ahead. If it were me, I would have probably gone head-to-head with them already. I gazed out of the window at the fallen bodies inside. Right now, I'm just using the ample resources in my hands to wear down these adversaries. We don't know what the outside world is like now, but there will certainly be other, more threatening groups. If we want to truly establish ourselves in this post-apocalyptic world, we need ample firepower and a strong fortress. Hearing this, Uncle Yu seemed deep in thought. "You're right, Zhang Yi. It's only the beginning of the end. Who knows what challenges lie ahead?"